Hey Bashers, in this video we've got the Fireteam 6S from Arma, and this is video 3 in the series for this car. We bought it as a slider, we brought it back to stock condition. In this video we're going to do the upgrades. Now this is what we think is necessary to bring it up to a durability kind of an upgrade set. Upgrading is always a personal choice, so if you don't agree with what we put into this, pick what you like and upgrade yours your way. This is what works for us. Today we're going to get down on the bench and we're going to show you how to do it. Check this out. All right, before we get down on the bench, let's take a quick look at what we're going to put into it for parts. Now, this here is going to use the Creighton version 5 shock towers. Now, these are the EXB ones, so they're made out of the good aluminum. We're also going to use the EXB Mojave chassis to give it that good aluminum there too. Also, the hub carriers in the front, the knuckles, whatever you want to call them, we're going to put the aluminum ones in there as well. We've got some covers for the shocks to protect those. We have a screen for the speed control to keep any dirt and debris out of that. We also have RPM arms for it, and these are the version 5 arms, so they're pretty stout. And we have a plastic kit. And that plastic kit is just in case we have anything that's been stripped out or anything along the lines of that. When we go through taking this thing apart, if we find anything that's loose, we'll swap it out for the new parts. Let's make this happen. Okay, so let's get the body off. And this is the easy way to get those hood clips off. And it's a lot easier on the tethers too. So we like to do it this way. And we need to get down inside of this. But let's break down the outside first. So let's get the wheels and tires off. Go. All right. Now, in order to do the chassis upgrade, and this is some necessary work here, we need to get rid of the tower-to-tower brace, and we need to get that center unit out. That's a body support in some vehicles. So let's go ahead and get these off of here. Get it lined up. There we go. And we'll set that aside. And now we're ready to do this the other way, but we always like to put the screws back in place so you don't have to fish for them later. Okay, so we're going to use a towel for this, and this is the cradle method, and we've used this a lot here. And it works on a lot of different flat pan chassis. We definitely like using this because what it does is it holds all of your components in place while you flip the chassis. It's pretty straightforward and easy. You just have to make sure you get it in there tight so that it holds all of the components. Okay, now let's go ahead and take off the bumpers first. So we'll get this one detached. And even though it looks like we're really ripping with this, we are going really slow with this power tool. We definitely don't want to create heat, and that's what speeding through that does. Okay, flip it around with the other one off. There we go. And those bolts really look rusty, don't they? It's like it got washed up, but it didn't get seasoned like it should have. There we go. Front bumper off. Okay, so let's line up the chassis, and this is the EXB one, of course. And what we're going to do here is we're going to do a little something special. We're going to set this thing aside. I need to put it up on something so the bolts can go in there, and we're going to index the bolts from one chassis right into the other one, making sure to put them in exactly the same place as the one they came out of. And this makes it so that you can always have the right bolt in place. Just having a look here. But you always have the right bolts in the right spot, so when you need one, you know right where it is. And again, slow with the power tools. Here we go. And we're just going to index all of them over. And this is what's so nice about this type of method here, because you don't have to worry about anything. You just pull the bolts and get after it. Here we go. Let's detach these now. And if this is set up right, it should stay together when we take the chassis off. And there you go. Old chassis off. And actually, that one's in pretty good shape for what it is. Let's clean up the goop so we don't get it all over the place. And now what we're going to do after this is we're going to index the screws out of the one chassis into the other. So we're just trading them over, putting them in exactly the right place. And this is really sped up, but we're just transferring them from one to the other because we're going to want them in that chassis when we put the new one on. There we go. There it is. And now that one's ready to go. And while we have it open, even though we've already lubed these, we're going to give it a little bit more just for good measure. There we go. And we'll just put this in place and we'll tie the two ends in first. So get them sitting in the right place, and we'll index one bolt in each one minimum just to make sure that it holds in place. And we're just going to run them down loosely. We're not going to crank anything down at this point. We're just going to run them down close. We're not going to crank them in tight. Just hold everything in place. And we are going to tighten everything when we're done here by hand. That's the way we're going to do this. Okay, now this is the steering linkage. And we're going to connect those steering blocks. There we go. There. Get the side rails on. And at this point, we're just going to go ahead and connect everything. Alright, now we're just running them down with this. We're not cranking them down tight. We're just running them down close. It's always a bad idea to crank them down with a power tool. It just is. You're only running into plastic most of the time, and it's an easy way to strip out components. There we go. Alright, so on some of these you need to reach underneath there and line things up. There we go. Just reach under there and pull your part into place and put your screws in. And before anyone freaks out about it, we're going to come back and put the Loctite in afterwards. We're just doing assembly here, so we're not putting any thread locker on anything. There you go. New chassis on. Okay, old chassis off, new chassis on, but there's still one thing we need to do yet, and that's torque them. And we always torque by hand. This is something we push hard here at the channel, and for good reason. If you use one of these, anything like this that's a power tool, look at the difference in handle size. You can get so much more power against this one that you can just strip the plastic right out. It's way too easy to do. Never torque with this thing turned on, ever. It'll just strip the screws out so fast it'll create heat. That's all bad. This is okay to run them down with, but once they're down, use the right one to torque them because it's easier to tell when they're tight. This is one of those things that you learn the hard way, and I've learned the hard way, and that's just the way that goes. Now, the thing about chassis swaps is this really makes it simple. So you line them up side by side as you saw in the video, and you index all your screws into the opposite chassis. Trade them over, put the new chassis on. Everything will be in exactly the right spot to just transfer them over to the other one. It saves so much time when you do that, and everything usually works very smoothly. However, we didn't use Loctite on the motor mount screws yet for that whole platform. Anything with the aluminum in it, we didn't Loctite it yet because we need to flip it over and have a look at it to make sure we got all the wiring in the right place and all that stuff. After we make sure that everything's right, we'll get the Loctite on it and we'll snug them back down, and that'll be good to go. Then we're going to jump on the other upgrades. So let's get that torque work done. So we're going to torque everything that's got the same size at once, and then we'll come back with the smaller one afterward. There we go. And you'll get the feel for this after a little while of how much you can crank it down before you realize that it's too much. Just finding the right pressure can make all the difference. Knowing when something's tight is a matter of feel, and it's something that comes with time and practice. All right. There's a couple things to do here. There's a couple of units that hold down the wiring, and we're going to put these on right now. So these little clips, they go underneath it. We'll do the rear one first. And it just holds the wiring in place so it doesn't get encumbered. We don't want it to get tangled up in anything else. There we go. And we'll make sure the wires are routed properly. Remember, we had the chassis off, so you got to check all the wiring to make sure nothing's pinched up. Now we'll do the front one. Back that off a little bit. There we go. And we want to get the new one in place. Make sure to get both wires in that. There we go. And hold it very carefully and run that screw back down. Don't let it move. There we go. And then just straighten it up to make it cosmetically nice. I mean, it only takes a second. There we go. Nice. Okay, so let's get into that front end tear down. We're going to start with the shocks here, and we're just going to get them off and out of the way. And if you've never torn down one of these armor cars before, they really are simple, but the first time it can seem a little bit sketchy. They're really not as hard as they seem, but keeping your parts separated is always the right thing to do. Now we need to get these spacers out. We're going to grab all three at once and just pull them off. Now with the upgraded arms, we're not going to use these spacers, but keep them anyway. All right. Let's get them upper arms off. Pull these lower screws. There's only two more here. Nice. And here's your shock tower. Shock tower off. There's the new one. And I think it looks so much nicer. It just does. It might be a slightly different shape, but it doesn't seem to affect things. We've had these on the Fireteam before, and they work just fine. Again, always torque by hand with a standard wrench. We're just going to put these in here to keep them out of the way so we don't lose them or lose their position. So that's only temporary. And this, you just back out a little bit to remove that pin. See there? And then we're going to snug it back down because we want to keep everything in the arms until we trade things over. Just like that. Snug it back down so nothing comes apart. And now we're just going to disconnect the sway bar. Perfect. Just like that. And now we're going to take the hinge pin blocks out. Okay, we've got two in the bottom here. And just like that. So that's the hinge pin block for the front side of that. And we're going to just put the screws back in. As always, we want to keep everything indexed so we know where it goes. Even the long ones for the front. If you put them in a bowl, the larger your pile, the worse things get when you're trying to find them. Well, there's a stubborn one. Let's see. That one was a little better. But those are in really rough shape. Okay, we'll break this down. And as always, make sure you put your screws back in place. There you go. We'll do the other side. Okay. Nice.
Okay, so we've got it tore down in the front end, and now it's time to start building things back up. And this is a perfect opportunity to put the arms and the hub carriers on it. So we're going to go ahead and tear into that next and get that assembled.
Okay. Now it's time to build those front swing arms. So there's our RPM stuff and some new front blocks. Let's get the arms out. We'll just set them up here for a minute. There we go. And we got to match them up, make sure we got the right ones. And we'll set those aside. So here they are. And they look a little different, but they are the same. Just like that. So let's tear this one apart. First off, we need to get this 17 millimeter off of the front. So inside of here, there's a grub screw that you need to back off just a little bit. So wait a minute. Be careful. This is a bad idea. Never put this kind of pressure on it. I have really good wrenches that fit these tightly, but I'm actually not twisting as hard as it looks. This is one way to deal with that. Now, this is something that you definitely need to have parental supervision on because this is a dangerous way to do it. We do not advocate anyone do this that hasn't been trained at this, but all you're doing is warming this up some. You can do it with a soldering iron, whatever, but you need to loosen up the Loctite that's in there. That's all we're doing. So nice and gently, we're just warming this up. It takes a little time. Do not burn the plastic. And then once you do that, keep in mind it's going to be hot. Now watch. Nice and easy. So all we had to do was liquefy that thread locker and things come apart quite nicely. Now we don't have to back this all the way off, just enough to let go of this rod that goes through there. So this pin is what keeps that 17 millimeter on. There we go, which hangs onto the wheels and tires. There we go, and that should be warm, so let's just put it in a glass bowl so nothing gets damaged. There we go. And we'll pull out the axle. Nice. All right, so now all the warm components are in the bowl. Let's have a look at this. So we need to break these balls down. So how this works is, first off, this is just a hex driver. It is. We just got one on eBay and found the right size, and it's just a little kit you can get. But it's just a hex driver that goes in your unit like that. So it's the perfect way to get these things apart. It makes it so much easier than trying to do it with a little hand wrench. And we're still going really slow here. Okay, now there's a couple of little keepers in here, and these are what fit the ball, so we want to get those out as well. Here we go. And take a look in there. We need to get in those with a wrench and back those out of the plastic. So we're going to do that next. Really nice. Okay. And we'll get the lower one. Good. Get that out like that. Looks pretty good. Set that aside. Okay, so this is a shock tool. It's designed for working on shock absorbers, and it's handy for a lot of things. But what I like about it is it fits right on here, and it pulls those caps off, and it won't damage the caps. It's real nice. A pair of pliers will do it too, but it can leave marks. Now what we want to do is transfer our hardware from the old arm to the new one. This allows us to see where everything was indexed because the new one has adjustment points. But I'm going to put this on here just exactly the same positioning as what it came off of the other one. So it should fit very nicely. This is exactly why we leave all of the hardware in the old arm so we can just transfer it to the new one. See, this one has shims. We're going to put those shims on the new arm too, and that should help it with its ride height. There we go. Just like that. We're just going to tighten this down a little bit, just a little. We're not going to snug it down much. And then let's get that cap on. Beautiful. And it fit on nicely. There it is. That's one arm built. Okay, so we're going to clean things up because we're going to use these balls again. So let's get out the front carriers and we'll see what we got here. This is just a basic generic set. We didn't actually go for a real name brand here. We just wanted to see what we could do on a budget. And they look pretty good. We'll see how they work when we put them on. But what I really am curious about is those castle nuts on the front, those. And they do have the O-ring in there. That little black ring, that's the O-ring, and that keeps them from backing off when you're out in the field. So that should be good. So let's fish everything through. Just like that. Line this up with the hole in the shaft and put the pin back in. There we go. And look at there. So now we want to tighten this up. And that shock tool works great for that too. Nice. So let's drop in the balls and we'll hook them to the arms. Just like that. And then we want to put these in place. And always start these threads by hand. Never do it with the power tool, because if you get them cross-threaded, you will have a terrible time trying to get these on and off in the future. And the way you do these is quite interesting. So what it is you crank them down and you lightly snug it so everything is kind of rigid. Just like this. And then back it off a quarter of a turn. And that'll be just right. So that's what it says in the directions for most of these brands. So that's perfect. Just like that.
So there's the first corner. Now the front two are identical, so we're going to build the next one off camera. We're going to jump right into putting them on the front of the car.
All right, so let's take a look at these hinge pins first and have a look at this. And this is a great way to tell if they're straight. Whoa, that one is seriously bent. Let's go ahead and clean it up really quick. Now let's have a look at the other one. Is it bent? Let's find out. Oh yeah, that one too. A little cleanup. And we can fix it. So this is gently tapping. I know it looks pretty weird when you do it this way, but you can get them straight. They're pretty soft material for the stock ones, so just a little tune-up goes a long way. There we go, and you roll it as you go and find the high spots and just gently tap them down. We're not trying to change the shape of the actual roundness. That'll do. Okay, so let's get ready to put this together. There we go, and let's put the arms in place, just like that. Put our hinge pin block in. There we go. And we'll go ahead and hook it down. And of course, always torque by hand. Okay. We'll get these longer ones put in place. There we go. Cool. Now you want to make sure and flip that sway bar over, because it'll get trapped there if you don't do it before you put it together. So make sure and do that. Nice and easy, and check the movement. Good. Same thing on the other side. Just like that. And notice you don't need those spacers. The RPM arms fit perfectly. Go and torque by hand. Don't overdo it with this one. And now we'll go ahead and connect the sway bar. I love this tool for this. Him and SAS are the only way to do this. There we go. And let's connect our steering linkage. There we go. Both sides. There we go. Now we got her started. Just like that. And we want to torque these together. Nice. Okay, now let's get those shock covers on. So first we need to take it apart, and we just need to get the coil spring off. And this is just a piece of cardboard tubing. You can find it at just about anywhere. You know, wrapping paper comes on this, but make sure you get the size that your spring fits through. There we go. And it's just like that. Pull it over the cardboard, pull your spring through it, just like that. And make sure your spring's in the middle, so you might have to do a little tucking there.
Slide it up on. And make sure that the skirt is on there where it belongs and pull it down with your thumb while you put this on. There you go. And this is a little tricky, but make sure you get it right in there the way it goes. And it should look like that. And that's the only one of these we're going to build on camera. There's the other one. So let's go ahead and put them on the car. There we go. Okay, now we're going to put these standoffs on, and these are pretty straightforward too. You have adjustment points here, but the ones that came stock were on this section, so we went ahead and mounted them out there so we'd keep as much of the stock setup as possible. Get the little ball in the protector. Done deal. Both sides, put the little ball in. Oh, got to get the protector over the top and then put them on. And this is a nylock, so just crank her on there. Don't over tighten it. There you go. Nice. All right, let's break that rear down. There we go. And this is very much like the ones in the front. As far as the shocks and things go, they come apart the same way. So this should go a lot faster. Now, you want to put that screw back in the same spot so you know where the setting was. There's options on the end of that, so make sure you put them in the same place when you put the bolt back in. There we go. And of course we're going to change the shock tower, so we need to take all the hardware off. That one's a little stubborn. There, that did it. And again, when you back this out, put the screw right back in the same spot. Now we're going to do something with this too. So now that is the body mount, so we're going to move it directly over. We're going to transfer the parts as we go so that we know right where they came from. Just like that. Do the same thing for the other side. Okay, so let's break this down a little further. Now this has shims in it, so be real careful with those. There we go, and when you back this off, there are also spacers that go on this centerpiece. Those. And I'll show you how those go back in a minute. You want to get the concussion rings off as well. And now we'll take the control arms off. And these are the adjustables for the top. And when you put these on, be real careful to get them in the same spot. It's really easy to get messed up on this. Take a really good look at where they came from and make sure and put them in the right place on the other one. And I have to say, it's not as easy as it looks sometimes. There we go. Crank her on down. Look at that. Okay, so let's get the rest of this part. And this is pretty straightforward stuff now. So these hook up to the chassis brace and we want to get them out of the way. And now it's just take this thing off. Rear shock tower off. That one was actually in pretty good shape. Take a look at that.
Okay. Now we're just going to transfer these screws to the other side so the differential doesn't walk around on us. And we'll put them back, but we need to get this hinge pin block off. So there's a couple more screws right here. There we go. And there's the outer shell. There is the casing for it. And the actual aluminum bits right here. So put it all back together so it stays as one piece, just like that. We'll set that aside for now. And we need to pull the pins. Oh, both of those came out nice. So there's the arms. All right, here's the new ones. So let's line these up, make sure we have the right one for each side. And that's that one. And that's that one. Perfect. So let's do this side first, and we're just going to transfer the hardware the same way we did in the front. Just making sure we know right where stuff goes. And we are going to keep the factory arms just in case we do have a problem in the field. We'll be able to swap them out. And we got to get this on there too, just like that. Nice. Okay, we'll do the other side. There. Just like that. Once you've done one or two of these, it goes pretty smoothly. There we go, and we'll go ahead and put those in position. Let's get that rear assembly done. Get those in place. We'll get that hinge pin block in place to hold everything. And this has a pin that comes off of the differential housing. You gotta get that lined up with that. Be real gentle with this. It'll go. You just have to find its position and it'll pop right on. Yeah, definitely don't muscle that around. That's not a very big pin and it's just a piece of plastic. So real careful putting that hinge pin block on. And always torque by hand. And look at that shock tower. Nice. There we go. Get these back in place. And this is the smaller spacer on this side. And this offsets that chassis brace so it doesn't hit the drive line. So the larger one goes on the other side, which would be the motor side. There we go. And those are in the nylock, so go ahead and torque those down good. And here's our pieces. Make sure they're the right ones. And we want to, I'm going to put the spacers all on the front side because I want to stretch this to the back a little bit. So this is why I got them stacked there instead of evenly spacing them the way they were from the factory. I just like it better this way for some reason. It's a personal preference on that. And we'll go ahead and snug this down. Definitely don't tighten those up so much that the arms don't move freely. You definitely need everything to move nice and free. And we'll get the sway bar connected. There we go. Nice. We'll get those drive axles in, and we'll put that top arm back on. There we go. Just like that, both sides. There we go. Fit right in there. Now that one, the threads are grabbing a little bit. Let's go ahead and give it some help. There we go. Just like that. There we go. Torque it all down. And we'll get those standoffs in place. Beautiful. Just like that. And we'll get the concussion ring on there. Now that has a little flat area that goes up against the shock tower itself. That goes up. It does. If you go down, it gets in the way of things. So see that little blade sticking up that's over there by the plastic bits? That definitely needs to go up. There's our shocks. And we'll go ahead and get them on the car. And this is exactly the same as doing the front on this part. Nice. Okay, now we're going to put the screen on the ESC. And this is going on there for a couple of reasons. The most important one is that you need to have something that will protect the fan from small particulates that can get down in there, like little sticks and branches. This does the job nicely. We've put this on several, and it always works good. So you just line it up here. You want to keep everything in place and just put the screws through it, and it'll hold just fine. There we go. And now that fan is protected. Just like that. We're making progress. Okay, it's time to backtrack just a little bit and get some thread locker where it's necessary. I always like to do it this way because if you have to backtrack during a build, let's say you put everything together, but you had a problem with a wire being in the way or something, you have to take it all apart. I like to make sure everything's put together right first, then add my thread locker. That's just the way I do it. That, again, is a personal choice. Okay, we'll get the bumpers on. This is definitely starting to take shape, and I really like that new chassis that's on there. Okay, 1, 2, 3. We'll start in the middle, bring it down even, and then work the sides. That stretches the plastic a little bit instead of binding it up in the middle. Well, a little torque work here. Make sure everything's good. Now let's put that bumper on. There we go. Let's get them started. Now let's run them down. And again, nice and slow. Nice. A little torque work. Sweet. And the last two for the bumper here. These two connect to the concussion rings. Now we need to put that tower-to-tower brace back in. That means we're getting really close to being done here. Excellent. Let's run it in. Just like that. And we'll put that body support in there. There we go. And we'll get the little clips in. Make sure nothing comes apart. Beautiful. Now, let's get those wheels and tires back in place. Alright, that looks a little weird. Looks like we need a little tie rod adjustment, so let's go ahead and do that. And we're going to crank them so they're towed out just a little bit. They seem to drive better like that, so towed out is the way it wants to go. There we go. We'll get that body in place. And we'll get that clipped on. Nice. That'll do. All right, so there you go. That is our upgrade package for the Fireteam 6S. You know, I really do like the Fireteam for what it was designed for, but when we first did the original build, and that was bringing things back to stock, we did upgrade the servo. So it has a 35 kg servo in there, and that's a VTEC, and we've used those in a lot of things. It really does work good. Also, while we were in there, we worked on the shimming to make sure that the front and rear differentials were good. The EXB chassis, using the cradle method, has always worked really well for us, because if you index the screws, you know exactly where they go, in and out, no problems. It usually goes together good, and that applies to most of the flat pan chassis cars. If you can get that towel set in there, or the cradle, to hold all the components, you can just swap the chassis and it goes really smoothly. Plus, with this body on here, the thing about that, with this body, it's really rigid, so that helps keep things nice and straight in the first place, because it can't buckle too much with the body in there. So that's also a good thing. We like the RPM arms here, but that's a matter of contention. There are people out there that hate the RPM arms. There are people that love them. It's really, as always, up to you whether or not you want to use those. The hub carriers are kind of generic. We just picked a basic set of hub carriers for the front or the front knuckles, because it doesn't seem to matter as long as they thread in good and they've got the O-ring to keep that castle nut in there. Everything works out pretty good as far as that goes. It doesn't matter what brand you choose as long as they're not shoddy built. Also, using the new arms and the new knuckles, we had to adjust the tie rods a little to get the front end to sit the way it wants to. Still, in the back, we had to raise those mounts just a little bit for the body to clear the new shock tower, because the shape is just a little bit different, but not much, not a lot to be a problem. Then follow that up with the speed control. Now, the speed control, if you look at the artwork on the top of it, that's supposed to be your, well, that's supposed to be your barrier between things getting in there. Well, the problem is it's got big enough holes in there, you get sticks and all kinds of weird stuff gets trapped in there. It blocks the fan, shuts things down, things overheat because of it. Using that screen, which is simply screen door mesh. Now, we use the metal stuff, not the plastic stuff, but it's just screen door mesh, and that keeps all of the larger stuff out. And that makes a big difference as far as things staying functional. On top of that, we put the shock covers on it. Now, I know these are blue. I should have just got black ones, but I had the blue ones here, and I like them anyway. But these keep all the dirt and stuff off of the shafts, and the shafts work against those O-rings, so as they collapse, it keeps the dirt from being a problem and binding up in the O-ring, causing problems in the long run. So if you haven't already, don't forget to bash that like button and help our content spread. You know, I love doing this kind of stuff, but wrenching for myself and wrenching for the channel are two completely different things. And I don't mind the difficulties of it, you know, working the cameras, working focus, lighting, all of that stuff, making sure it's quiet when I'm doing this so you get the best possible outcome. That's one way to do it, and that is fulfilling in its own way. But wrenching for myself, crank up the stereo, nothing matters, sit right there. You can do it in about 20% of the time it takes to do it for the channel. Doing all of this should have taken me maybe 2 hours to do the whole thing. Tops, all the way to the beginning. This took 2 days to film, and still, it's a lot of fun. The thing about doing these bench videos is the editing process is pretty involved when you think about it. If you have anything you'd like to add to this video, please feel free to get down in the comments below and help others along the way. For AJ Jam Studios, I'm AJ saying, keep wrenching.